My name is Sharad Sharma, and I'll be chairing the panel today. We're going to focus on a couple of themes in this session, one of which is going global, another one is partnerships, and we're going to tie all these elements together in the context of emerging companies. Now, Pradeep mentioned this earlier. We are going through a dramatic period, at least in the Indian IT industry, and I would say this is a global phenomena where entrepreneurship is taking off. I think for the first time here in India, you see academic institutions actually being very, very supportive of entrepreneurship. This wasn't the case 5 years back. You also have a situation where parents, believe it or not, are open to the ideas of their children becoming entrepreneurs. This was also not the case a few years back. So entrepreneurship is really, really booming. You have venture capital available. You have a very good talent base, people who have worked either in bigger firms in India or have opted, in some sense, even I am in that category, to come back home in recent years. So there is a certain energy that you can feel in the Indian IT industry. But there's something very different. Almost all the firms that we are looking at today, and I've been kind of watching them for the last 2 years. I've been a jury member in the innovation, Nasscom Innovation Awards this year and was associated with it the previous year. So I've had an opportunity to look at lots of young startups. The fascinating thing today is that a vast majority of those startups are micro multinationals. They are starting off as companies with presence in multiple locations, multiple countries, multiple continents. My favorite example, which many of you who have heard me speak earlier, is this little company on Route 237 in Silicon Valley. It focuses on the broadband market, and it chose to focus initially on Korea. Korea has very high penetration of broadband. So they put their product management team in Korea. And they had their engineering team, of course, in Silicon Valley. And guess what? That helped them crack the Korean market. And in spite of the downturn that happened a few years back, they are still alive and kicking. Now, interestingly, not one of the founding members has Korean heritage. So this was completely an intellectual play. They decided that if we got to build a company, we got to be in the shadow of the leading edge of customers and consumers. And that leading edge happened to be in Korea. So they said, part of a company, the customer-focused part of a company should be there. The talent, engineering talent for them was in Silicon Valley, so they kept that part in Silicon Valley. And this model of a micro multinational is repeating itself again and again and again. And if you see, this is, of course, happening for product companies. There's no doubt about that. Because in a product company, you have a need to be close to your customers. And in many cases, the leading edge, is obviously not in India. It could be Korea, as we talked about. If you're in online advertising platforms, believe it or not, the leading edge is UK today. If you happen to be in mobile content, the leading edge is, again, depending on what kind of content you're talking about, is in Asia. And the leading edge itself has gone global. If you go back 10 years, 15 years, or no matter which category you talked about as a startup, your leading edge was in Silicon Valley or was in the US. That's not the case anymore. So that's one reason for you to go global. Another reason for you to go global, of course, is the micro multinational phenomena that I talked about. There is a third reason for you to go global. And that is to do with a new set of opportunities that are manifesting today. And these opportunities are not to do with new consumption patterns that are getting established. This whole notion of, if you take the example of EverQuest, I don't know, how many of you are familiar with EverQuest? Right? It's a massively multiplayer online role-based gaming. Very big in Korea. Because, somebody in the earlier panel talked about how gaming is taking off in Asia. And this is online gaming. Online gaming where you have your avatars and you play that. And guess what? Koreans are addicted to this more than anybody else in the world. So did this exist 5 years back, 10 years back? No, it did not exist 5 years back. Did ringtones exist some years back? No, it did not exist some years back. So you have new consumption patterns that are coming up, and of course, around those consumption patterns, you have startups and emerging companies. But separate from that, there's another mega trend that we are very actively involved in, which is that the value chains themselves are going modular. Companies were accustomed to do everything in-house, and they are now beginning to look at this idea of saying, hey, you know what, being vertically integrated is not the recipe for success. For us, what is going to bring us success is if we focus on something that we do really well and find others who do the other parts better than anybody else, right? And so it could be that kind of business outsourcing could be very strategic to the company. If you're an airline company, that could be revenue accounting for you. If you are a sales, it may not be that strategic. It could be sales accounting for you. It could be if you are Bharti Airtel, it could be running your IT services for you, and it could be even running your network for you, a cellular network for you. So the point I'm trying to make is that the new big corporation model itself is to focus on modular value chains and specialized firms. And that opens up opportunities for lots and lots of startups who can step in and say, you know what, you've been doing it internally, I can come and do it for you. Not only can I do it better, I can also do it cheaper. And what's more, over time, I'll be able to add more innovation into this part of the business process as you move forward. So these kind of startups and that exist today, they also, by definition, focus on global markets. They are micro multinationals when they are starting off. But they look at partnering, if you think about it, in a very different fashion from the companies that I talked about a little earlier, the product companies. Product companies look at partnering most of the time when they look for market expansion.